Hi, welcome to this newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeep Mahmood, with my normal co-host, Hunter. And today we're going to be talking MLB trade deadline. We're going to be talking in general. We're going to be talking some of the moves that the Orioles and Nationals made. And then we're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel's contract extension. And then we'll be talking about Ravens and Steelers. So let's first talk about the general MLB trade deadline. It was a lot of names getting moved. I think some of the big names, Josh Hader got moved.
Yeah.
Frankie Montas got Lou Trevino. Um, Obviously, some of the Orioles and Nationals. What was your reaction seeing all these moves being made?
I mean, teams are just they're going all in. I think for this season, especially the Padres just even without Juan Soto, deal after deal after deal after deal. They just were trading everyone basically. I felt like the Mets were a bit too quiet, especially for a team that's leading the NL East. I feel like that was kind of a mistake on their part. I mean, this is a team that hasn't won a championship since '86. I felt like they would have been more, I guess, aggressive with some of their players. The Phillies, I think, even made some bigger moves, which definitely. Make sure my dog's okay over there. Definitely moves that I thought the Mets would have made, but I thought the Orioles they also did a good job. We'll get to them.
Yeah.
Obviously, they got some good returns for their players, and I think also they're kind of getting some backlash because they're a game and a half out of the wild.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to
Before we
that.
get to that, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
but
ridiculous, but yeah, I'll get to that.
but yeah, just a lot of action overall. And that's how a trade deadline should be. You saw one of the biggest deals in MLB history with Juan Soto going to the Padres. Good luck to everyone else. I think when you see Tatis Jr. when he comes back, Soto and Machado, probably 3, 4, 5. That is just a murderer's row of hitters.
And Josh Bell and Jake Cronenworth and a few others.
Yeah, that's gonna be something else to say the least. But the Dodgers, they're very comfortably leading the NL West. Weird to see Noah Syndergaard back in the NL East. That's not on the Mets. I'll say
Did
that.
you see that video? It was a
I
gif
did.
of him pushing the fanatic out of his bike. It's like, oh, this is gonna be awkward.
Yeah. Yes. It was very funny. So, a lot of fun deals. A lot of great players being moved. It would have been more fun indeed if Otani was moved, but the Angels decided to keep him, and I think rightfully so. He's the best hitter slash pitcher, like combined, I would say, in the league. And what were your overall thoughts of the deadline?
Uh, there was more action than last year, which was good.
I
Teams
love
are
seeing I
like
love
it.
seeing Passan. I love seeing Passan dunk on every one of his haters. It's always a great
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No, I think there were some questionable moves. I mean, you mentioned a few, like the Mets being more quiet than we all thought they would be. I mean,
Yes.
Mia Vogelbach and the I forgot the other guy they got. It seemed like from you because they were talking about Contreras, they were talking about JD Martinez, Mancini. They were talking about a lot of names, and they ended up with just those two. That's interesting. I want to do touch upon the Brewers. I think the Brewers are the biggest losers of this deadline
It's
because
weird. Like, why are you trading so many good players when you're first in the NL Central and the Cardinals are right on your heels? Are you just not
and you have
expecting?
your all-star closer. You trade your all-star closer. You didn't really get back anything. And oh yeah, and by the way, 24 hours later, you trade one. You DFA one of those guys into Nelson Lamet. You
It,
DN, you
it,
DFA.
it doesn't make any sense to me. And I saw also people trying to spin it.
Definitely.
Like they were saying, well, the Brewers don't like to lose like too often. Their general manager, he got like a good return on this. I'm like, are they trying to compete next year too? Like I feel like what is the plan out
Yeah,
there?
here's my thoughts on whether they got a good return. It depends on two things: whether Devin Williams can step into that closing role,
Mhm.
and also whether the guy replacing Devin Williams can do as good of a job in the eighth inning that Williams was able to do. Because if you can't do either of those two, as great as Devin Williams' changeup is, if he struggles in the closing role, because let's be honest, there's not all relievers are closers. You got a problem there, and you got someone who's unhappy. And if both the guy and then the new eighth inning guy struggles, then that's a problem as well. So that's the first thing. The Yankees going after the Yankees were also, it was questionable because apparently because they went after, they didn't get Castillo, so they went after Montas. By the way, Frankie Montas, his Yankees debut, 2 innings, 6 earned runs against the Cardinals. So that's not great. Lou Trevino, I don't know how good he's doing. They did go out and get Scott Efros, who's a decent reliever, but it really was a story of teams that you thought were going to make big moves didn't really make as big of a move as people thought they would. But then teams like the Twins were far more active, like Tyler Mahle, who's a solid pitcher, uh, Jorge Lopez. I think they also got another reliever, Michael Fulmer. That was another one. Um, the Tigers did announce that they were going to have a fire sale. They didn't really trade Tariq Skubal. The Marlins didn't have a fire sale. They didn't trade Pablo Lopez, even though apparently they were close to it. It's gonna be so, and then and the Padres. Like the Padres are going all in. They're going all in. I feel like their
You
window
might
is.
get a World Series in your franchise history. I think with the lineup you already have, I think you owe it to the fans who have been there forever to do this and try to, bring home a championship. It's funny. I kept seeing, I'll get back to what you're saying in a second. Pirates fans were pretty upset because you look at a team like the Padres, not a very high spending team, a team that, sure they're in California, but the Giants and the Dodgers are always more successful than them. And their owner, he understands it. That he wants to go out there and win. And it draws comparisons to Pirates where they're kind of in the same situation as the Padres where they don't spend a lot of money, but they just don't have the owner that wants to go out there and I guess give them that championship team. So I figured I would just add that there
Oh
for a
yeah.
second.
No, and also the thing about the Padres is the Padres were bad for a while, but
Yeah.
they're not doing what the Orioles were doing. What the Orioles are doing now, which is they're building up that farm system, but not just building up that farm system, because they had like at one point 10 guys in the top 100 in the MLB pipeline. And when we get to the the Soto trade and all these other trades they made in the past few years, they've kind of depleted that. But then they also have a strong foundation internationally. And so they're able to go in and get these top three, top five international classes year in and year out. And then while at the same time they're building through that farm system. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise if they're able to go after some of these guys and say, oh, it's their seventh best prospect or it's their fifth best prospect because they do such a good job. They're not really scared about depleting their farm system because they got the instruction manual to replenish it. And I think it's what's smart. It's what good baseball teams do. Now, the problem with the Padres is they're very front loaded, and it's and he and the point and then what's interesting is that Machado is going to be he can opt out after 2023, and he already paid Tatis a lot of money. Soto is going to get paid a ton of money, so it's going to be interesting to see whether they keep all three of those guys or whether they let Machado walk and then they try to pay Soto or whatever, or they let Soto walk because they're going to keep Machado for the remaining 5 years, $150 million. So they have to make some tough business decisions, and then obviously they extended Joe Musgrove 5 years, $100 million. So their team willing to spend money, but unlike teams like the Pirates, the Padres know how to replenish their system. The Pirates don't know how to replenish their system. They might have a brief moment or two, but they don't develop. They don't really trade well. We'll see what they do. So I think that's where it is with the Pirates. And I think and then we talked about the Brewers. Okay, so we'll talk about the Orioles and Nationals.
Well,
Let's first talk Orioles.
I was going to start with you, Adit. So I've seen a lot of complaints from people these last couple of days that, well, why did they make all these trades and they're a game and a half out of the wild card spot? You kind of owe it to the fans to, just make even more progress this year just because everyone thought you were going to be so terrible. Like, what do you say to those people?
I would say that if you paid attention to the Orioles farm system and how they've been operating, they've been doing a ton is they've been drafting a ton of bats And that's really smart because a lot of teams focus on drafting arms and signing the bats. And so now what the Orioles are doing is they're drafting all of these really high on base, high on average bats. So when it comes down the line, they could go trade for pitching. So in the event that a team like the Tigers are entering a rebuild, they're going to be sending off a Tariq Skubal or Marlins with a Pablo Lopez. So now the Orioles can go and trade with them because they have plenty resources where the other teams lack. So, but the downside to that, and this is why I'll get to the trade with Lopez and Mancini, it is they don't have a lot of pitching arms. You got Grayson, you got DL, and you got another tier, and then you have your next group of guys. So what they did with Mancini and what they did with Lopez, there are some great arms they have. And it's important to note prospect rankings mean nothing. So when you look at like Cade Povich, who they got from the Twins as a headliner, yes, he's the 26th best prospect in the Twin system. He's also a lefty, like a 2-year college lefty, who has a fastball that can reach the mid 90s, has two above average, a good breaking ball, no, good curveball, good slider, developing changeup, has a 12.2 K per 9 rate per 9 innings this year, and it was really more so of when the velocity kind of for him this year, when the velocity kind of increased, his production increased. He just had his first start in an Orioles affiliate, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, I believe 1 hit. So he ingratiated himself really well. Yennier Cano, we'll see what he does. And then they have a couple of they have an 18-year-old arm who's very interesting. But here's the thing. Here's what's impressive about this kid. He might not amount to much. If you have an 18-year-old Dominican League arm and he has 38 strikeouts to 4 walks, that's good indication, right? Mm-hmm. At 18 years old. So that's one of those arms, and then you have a 21-year-old arm. We'll see what happens to those. And then with the Mancini one, the Rays are pretty good at developing pitching prospects, and we got back the Rays' second best pitching prospect. Seth Johnson, yes, he's going to need Tommy John, but he's a converted infielder. Fastball can reach 97, 98, can throw 3-4 pitches. He is their third best pitching prospect. Like, he is a legitimate number 3, number 4. I was watching a Orioles YouTube, Locked On Orioles host, Connor Newcomb. He was interviewing the guy from Tampa, and he basically said the worst case scenario: Grayson Rodriguez game 1, Seth Johnson game 2. That should tell you how good. And this is a guy that follows the minor leagues. Like, it's like that type. If he hits his ceiling, that's the type of arm you're getting. You're talking about a 2-3 headed monster down the line of, okay, you got Grayson Rodriguez, one of the best pitching prospect game 1. You got John Means, one of the better pitchers, one of the better lefty pitchers right now. Not top 5, not top 10, but pretty decent. Maybe he's your game 2 starter. DL Hall, Seth Johnson, Cade Povich, Chase McDermott, who struck out, get this, 114 batters in 72 innings at high A ball. So high strikeout, low walk rate. You're getting these guys through these trades. Now, let's get to the Mancini and Lopez part. Why would you trade Lopez? Easy. Because the Orioles, if you've noticed, have 5 or 6 waiver claims in their bullpens, and they took these guys that were thrown away by other teams, used the analytics, fixed a couple of things, and now they're pitching really well. Felix Bautista started last year in single A ball, and now he is a dominant closer. Cionel Perez was a waiver. The Reds, who have the worst bullpen this year, last year as well, one of the worst bullpens, gave up on him. Cionel Perez has a 1.1 ERA. Jorge Lopez was a waiver claim from the Royals, had a 5 ERA. They converted him to a reliever. People hated when they claimed him. People hated when they kept him around. People hated when they moved him to the bullpen. Well, even though they said he might be a better reliever, people hated when he was a closer. And then,
they hate him all the time.
They hate him all the time. Well, it's also like because he's one of these like guys that they aren't superstars, but they can be good. They can play a piece on your team. and then he gets 19 saves in half a season, and you know how relievers can be very fickle in their performance. Like 1 year they're really high, 1 year they're really low, and then they trade him. And then obviously, like I said, I mentioned, don't look at prospect rankings, don't look at that stuff, because just look at the stuff that some of these guys have as a player, and you just grade off that. They sold high on Jorge Lopez. Maybe they should have sold high on if they weren't competing in the 2010 decade for Zach Britton or some of those other guys they had there. But they did a good job on those packages. And then I do want to address, and then Mancini, obviously he was the emotional leader, but he's also a 30-year-old first base DH. So you got back a ton of value back from Mancini. And oh yeah, by the way, they called up Terran Vavra to essentially be your second base DH. The kid has an old school approach. He's batting about 380, 390, 400. I think he had and the thing about him is he would get on base a ton in the minors. So son of a hitting coach, great approach, gets on base a ton. Does not have a ton of home run pop, but think like Brian Roberts, but with not that much power. But like Nick Markakis, like he's one of those glue guys you want. And so the reason I bring up his name is because Bob Nightingale posted a tweet about how the Orioles waved a white flag. Well, they're 5-1. They're going to lose today to the Pirates, but they've been 5-1 since the trade deadline.
Can't lose to the Pirates.
Well, they're 5-1. I don't care. I don't really care. And by the way, they played better. They played better against better competition. So I actually do have confidence to get them against like Blue Jays, Red Sox, Rays, and they do have a tough schedule ahead. But going back to where they so I mean, and then he also then posted another tweet, and this was, oh yeah, and this might be a tweet you're referencing. It's like, oh, they were one game behind for a wild card spot. Imagine what happens if me. Like you're not, like they've been 5-0. Like you literally cannot do any better than that. So I don't understand this tweet. It's just people just trying to complain just to complain. And you know for a fact, if they go on a losing streak, you know they're going to bring up trading Mancini and Lopez. And the reason they're going to do that is because they just want to be right and all this other garbage stuff. But no, I mean, the Orioles are in great shape. They're at worst, they're going to be 2 games out of a wild card spot. But it's August 7th, and they don't have Means, they don't have Grayson, they don't have DL, and the Orioles are 2 games out of a wild card spot, and you have confidence that they are able to compete against Blue Jays, Rays, and some of these other teams. You can't really have predicted this at the start of the year. I mean, it is fun to watch. I don't anticipate them making the playoffs. I do want to bring up another point. This was related to Mike Elias, but what are your thoughts on the Orioles trade deadline and everything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought, I think they just wanted Mancini to get his shot at a World Series. They probably knew that he wasn't going to get it this year, right? So, and he's had a good enough year that they can get a decent return for him. Sure, you're right in the playoff spot. You're right in the thick of the race right now. But, do you expect them to be right there at the end of September, like that close? I would probably say no. I think you're going to fall back at least a little bit, where it's not, I mean, it's not going to be, I don't think, super terrible, but I don't think it's going to be within a game or two at the end of September or something like that. Those are, my main thoughts on that. My team, obviously, I'll eat crow would eat. I didn't think Juan Soto was going to get traded. I will take the L. That massive package coming back from the Padres. I'll say this, Hassel, I think, has the chance to be really, really good. Wood, I think he also has a chance to be really, really good. Those are 2 of their best prospects. I think those are 2 of the best prospects in all of baseball. But I think you just said it, man. Those rankings, how'd you say it? Like they don't really mean anything, right? Just because, you still don't really know. For as good as they may be, they're not going to be as good as Juan Soto. That's like the thing I've been struggling to deal with these last couple of days. Okay, yeah, sure, the return is not bad, but you should have just kept the player and not even had this. He shouldn't even have had to come to this situation in the first place, if you ask me. These players.
Before you continue, do you think that it's fair to have a discussion on the fact that they couldn't keep Harper, they couldn't keep Rendon, They couldn't keep Turner, and they gave up. They essentially traded Turner, and they traded Soto. Do you think it's fair to have a discussion or conversation
I
about
think some of those are like they're different situations. The Harper one, I think the owners just really screwed up that kind of contract. They just deferred a lot of money there. Watching go to the Phillies was obviously not good. Rendon, that looked bad on Merritt, but look where it is now.
yeah,
Like he
sure.
can't even stay healthy. Which so I think they kind of won that one. I mean, won in quotation marks. Trey Turner, okay, that's a decent argument. I wish they could have kept him. Max Scherzer, he was a rental anyway, so you kind of have to trade him if you're not going to make the playoffs. You can get a lot back for him. Josh Bell, I understand that he was probably not going to come back anyway. I'm more upset at the fact that sure, that looks bad. You lose a lot of good players that you develop. It shouldn't have had to come to this. Juan Soto's especially the bad one. But what I'm really upset about is you have all these players that you signed to one-year contracts in the offseason, and you don't move on from basically any of them. What is your strategy then? You're just going to watch them walk to other teams at the end of the season? Sure, they're not, great players like, Kyle Bearclaw and, Tanner Rainey and Nelson Cruz and all these other players that they signed to one-year deals. But I got to feel like someone would take at least one or two of those guys for just even like a smidge of a return. The fact that you're not getting anything for them, I think, is bad asset management, if you ask me. I don't like it. I'm still definitely hurt by everything that would happen with Soto. I thought they offered him a decent contract. We can discuss the AAV until the sun goes down and all that stuff. But that was a pretty hefty contract. I'll say that. And it's just a shame that that they couldn't come to an agreement like, okay, we're going to keep you and maybe try to keep doing this for the next couple of years. And yeah, I know Scott Boras sucks. I think he's a terrible agent for baseball. I think he hurts the game. I've been saying that for years. I don't like those kind of agents. He doesn't really care if players, stay where they're at, especially where it looks like they're happy. He always wants them to hit the open market. And, sure, in some cases that makes sense. But I think for every player that you have, that you want them to all hit the market so you can get the most money. I think someone like him is just a total sham for the game. I've never liked him at all.
Yeah. So,
and it's just tough. And you have Mike Rizzo spewing out a bunch of garbage that, I'm wearing that one. This is why I'm wearing the World Series ring today and all the bumpy road stuff. I'm like, dude, shut up. Like, it's been 3 years. I know we won the World Series, probably one of the greatest moments of my life, but the team is in a really bad place right now. They stink. There's no future. They're probably not going to be good for the next 3 years. I don't want to hear that kind of stuff. You didn't need to trade the player. You still did. You don't even know if these players are going to be that good because they're still prospects. They have the potential to be. I like what they got with Luke Voigt. I'm glad that they didn't really get Eric Hosmer's contract because he flat out sucks right now. It's just a lot of things that just come into my head about it, and I don't know, man. I wish they would have just kept him. I think it's stupid that it came to this, and honestly, they probably should have got more. Josh Bell's in that trade. He's had a really good year. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So the thing though is about the Nationals when it comes to this trade package. I think it was pretty interesting to see yesterday Patrick Corbin sucking. And then, but then also, and I think I replied, yeah, and I replied with I think I replied to a tweet that you had, and I basically said, well, Austin Vogt, who was drafted and developed by the Nationals, comes to Baltimore, and he has this quote a few weeks ago, pretty much saying the Orioles opened up and gave him more information than he ever had in Washington, pretty much. So it is interesting. It is pretty interesting to see that Austin Vogt in 8 to 9 starts in Baltimore have a 3 ERA, and then on the same day he's pitching really well. Patrick Corbin has taken a complete nosedive from what he was in Arizona. So, which kind of brings me to this point. With the Nationals trade package, it's not just the rankings for me that I'm concerned about. It's the fact that the Nationals prospect development is shaky. It's questionable, and I don't know. I mean, yes, you do have guys like
No,
a
it is. It's very questionable. The
yeah,
minor
you
league
have
system
guys
got
that
that.
do come out. Yeah, you do have guys that are successful, but for every Bryce Harper, there's a Victor Robles,
Well,
right?
I will say, like, the hitters that have come through the system the last 6, 7 years of D. I mean, how many teams get to say that they developed a Trey Turner, a Bryce Harper, a Juan Soto, an Anthony Rendon, going even further back, Ian freaking Desmond, who was really good until he fell off a little bit. They've had some really good
Yeah,
talent come through that system. It's just but you're right. You have the Victor Robles, you have these other players that they don't pan out. Like Carter Kieboom hasn't panned out the way you wanted him to. But they have done well in spurts. But it matters a lot more now. You just traded a franchise cornerstone. You
right.
have to get this right. You have to make sure that the players, the two big ones, Wood and Hassel, who are in AAA, I believe, right now, and then you have what's his full name? Gore, I believe, is what it is.
Or
They get Mackenzie Gore. He's basically MLB ready, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
he's MLB ready. He's just slightly hurt right now.
Yeah. So you just have to make sure that you really nail those three parts of this deal. Luke Voigt, he's going to be on. He has a little bit of control. Maybe if you're stink next year, you can probably get a little bit for him for a trade deadline deal. But this deal is really, I think, going to be judged in 3 to 4 years when the big guns that you got are potentially ready.
Yeah. I'm going to conclude my Nash point by saying it's up to the development. It's up to like whoever new ownership is. They have to take a look at development because you have some high ceiling guys. You have your Elijah Green, your Brady Houses, your James Wood, your CJ Abrams. It's just that if you can't develop them, then these prospects are nothing, and you traded Juan Soto for them, so it puts even more pressure. So it is a little. It is not what you got back for Juan Soto. It's what are you going to do with these prospects? What are you going to focus on? So going back to that, like the Orioles had that problem. So I'm going to finish up with this thought on the Orioles. They had this problem, and then what did they do? They went out, they brought in Mike Elias, and he changed everything. Like he changed the pitching development, he changed the analytics, he changed the draft strategy was clearly all these backs, and then developing the arms. It's a slow process, but what he was doing was he was he had a plan and he has followed it. So Mike Elias had some comments recently, and I love the fact that Mike Elias is brutally honest. What in his introductory press conference he said it's going to suck, it's going to take a while, but here's what I'm going to do, and here's why I'm doing it. And he has stood to the script every single time. So Mike Elias made a little bit of a gaffe. He was talking about the Mancini trade, and sometimes you think stuff in your head that you should not say out loud. So he said, because he's dealing with probability, like he's trying to find the best process of action here, and he said it's more probable than not that we're going to have a wild card spot. While it'll be good, it's more probable than not that we won't be have a wild card spot. So basically saying we could come close, but I don't anticipate. Now,
He even said, guys, we're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. Let's all chill out.
yeah, and here's the thing: we're all thinking that. Michael Elias is thinking that, but he's the GM, and it's sort of like you probably shouldn't say that out loud.
Yeah.
We get it, we get what you're saying, and we agree with you. It's just like you probably shouldn't be saying that publicly. So what he actually did was he actually, and this is pretty cool of him, he actually flew to Texas because they were playing the Rangers. And then he went ahead and actually talked to the leaders. He talked to Mullins, he talked to Hayes, he talked to Mountcastle, and I think maybe a couple other people. And he said, look, here's the plan. Here's why I traded Mancini and Lopez. Here's what we're trying to do. So he kind of did some damage control there, but basically he's made he gapped a little bit, but it's still I have no problem with it. Now, this is the exciting thing. He also said the Orioles have now lifted off, and he's going to try to spend more money in free agency. Now, everyone has been talking, and by the way, he's also said we are near for the Orioles. They are near a 10-year competitive window. So he said all of that. Now, when Michael Elias says something about the progress of the rebuild, if he says something publicly, you kind of have to take it as fact, because Michael Elias will not say something just to say something. He's very strategic. It's very political the way he answers. It's very like a politician type answer. He'll say what you need to say, or what he wants you to wants to say at that time. Like I said, when times are bad, he'll say when times are bad. He's giving some optimism here. So that now the question is, if they do enter free agency, what are they going to do? Now, obviously, they could go after pitching. Carlos Rodon's available. Noah Syndergaard's available. All that other stuff. To me, what this suggests is he's going to go after a big-time bat. Now, the Carlos Correa thing, I think that's going to come into play because I think he's going to opt out of this deal with Minnesota. He's got that connection with Elias. He is that vet bat with playoff experience type of mentality. So that's kind of where I think that's where he's kind of leaning with those comments. But it's just it's just an interesting thing that he said, and I know that. Oh, and by the way, I want to give a big and Jeff Passan did a great job. I don't know if you saw this clip, but basically Buster Olney. This was on the trade deadline thing. Basically said Buster Olney, Eduardo Perez, Tim Kirchin. They were talking about the Lopez trade, and Buster Olney said, "Well, how bad of a message is sent to your fan base?" He mentioned his comments. I just said he said about it's more probable now you're not making the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said, well, the Nationals did this in 2019 and they won the World Series. The Braves did this in 2021 and they won the World Series. And then Jeff Passan said, I commend teams for going forward when they're 500. But let's keep this in mind. The Nationals and the Braves were supposed to be good in the year they won the World Series, and they were in a slump. The Orioles were supposed to be bad, and they've been overperforming. That's the big difference here. And then he pointed out the Orioles are building towards the future. So they have one eye on the present, another eye on the future. So these Mancini and Lopez deals were kind of representative of that. And of course, Buster Olney looking as dumb as ever, kept his mouth shut, and they moved on to the next topic.
Buster Olney's like so weird, man. Like he just runs his mouth. I feel like.
Oh yeah, he gave an F for the Orioles on the trade deadline.
Of course he did.
Yeah, so
I don't even know what he gave the Nationals. I mean, I read some stuff about Barry. Civil. How do you even pronounce his last? He's from the Washington Post, and he just has like the funniest last name. I think Keith Law had something on it too. I think they gave it like a decent grade or something like that, but I don't know. The team's unwatchable as it is. I saw what Patrick Corbin did last night. They can take that idiot and just send him to the sun, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Great 2019 World Series run for you, Patrick, but those days are over.
Yeah. So we'll end the baseball portion of the show there. We're going to talk with the NFL news. What's your quick thoughts on Deebo's extension? And then we'll talk about Deontay's extension when it comes to the season.
Very rightfully deserved, I think. One of the best receivers, one of the best playmakers, I think, in all of football. I think he was paid not just for a wide receiver, but as kind of a running back too. I'm not really sure what the plan is there for Kyle Shanahan this year. Is he going to be that same kind of just pure hybrid playmaker?
They'll probably use him as a receiver more, and then they'll probably increase the role of one of their running backs.
Yeah, I think that would probably make the most sense. He's better, I think, at receiver anyway. I'll be curious to see how much more he gets the ball from Trey Lance compared to Jimmy Garoppolo, but you knew he was going to get more money than DK. I think he's a better overall player. That Metcalf, though, I think it's a little arguable. I think the stats are very close, the role that they have. But I was not surprised that Deebo was able to get, his worth there. Deontay Johnson obviously got a lot less, but I think the Steelers, they were being, I think, maybe a little cautious with him, giving him a team-friendly deal to see if he can do this again with, I guess, a slightly lesser quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky, in a Kenny Pickett before he'll be able to hit the market. I believe he hits it in 2024, I believe is when he hits the market. Yeah, when he's only like 25. He's only like 26, 27 anyway. So the receiver market continues to get more crazy. It's only going to continue to get crazier, I would say, in the years to come.
Yeah, so I think I agree. I think that he definitely deserves money. It's something going to be interesting, not just because of the money and because of the court. You also got to look at the quarterback and having more of a dual threat quarterback with Trey Lance versus more a slightly more traditional one, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to help. It's going to impact his usage, but also losing the guy who became the coach for the Dolphins. Losing him as the offense, so now you have a different offensive coordinator and a different offensive mind. So I think it's gonna shift it more towards passing offense, and so we'll see what Deebo Samuel does there. So speaking of that, let's talk Ravens and Steelers. Preseason's going to start in a few days. I mean, you mentioned the Deontay Johnson extension. I think it's really smart. I think that one of the things that the Ravens and Steelers do really well is they don't, unless they have to or in a position to, they don't overpay. They will go and get the second tier guy if they need to, or they'll get a guy at 90% of the price, and they're going to do just as well as some of these other teams. And I think the Johnson signing is going to be really good. I mean, he's definitely he's your number one. I mean, Smith Schuster. I mean, and then pick. I mean, yeah, I mean, you guys have a pretty good receiving room there. I mean, is there anything else for the Steelers?
Chris Boswell, he has now makes the same. Him and Justin Tucker are the two highest paid kickers in the league. Rightfully deserved. They are, I think, the two best kickers in the league. I would obviously put Justin Tucker a little bit above Chris Boswell, but it's kind of like a 1A, a little bit of a 1B kind of thing. And, he rightfully got his money. He's been very accurate. So, just to finish this up, I am tired of this quarterback stuff every goddamn day of training camp. Let us just wait to see how they do in preseason actual games before just declaring that this person is just not good or something like that. Yeah, some players are going to have bad days at camp. It's literally training camp. He's also going up against one of the best defenses in the league. Point blank. I mean, Steelers, there are probably no more than 3 defenses that are probably going to be better than the Steelers unit this season if they're fully healthy. I think I can, be fine with that argument. Maybe 4 to 5, if that. But it's just constant every day. Not a good day, like completion percentage, interceptions, and all this. It's like, okay, cool. Let's watch them get game reps when the preseason starts this week. Let's see who starts. Let's see how they play. Second preseason game, same thing. Third preseason game, same after that. People are going to overreact to the depth chart and all this other nonsense. It means nothing right now. Let's just see how they actually play before Mike Tomlin makes a decision on who is going to start. It's probably going to be Mitch Trubisky. I know Mason Rudolph is the backup right now. Pickett also hasn't really had too much of a chance to shine at camp yet. That's going to change when he probably gets more snaps during the games in preseason. I'm sure, honestly, probably for their final preseason game, I would expect Pickett to start that game so he can potentially have, at least one more, I guess one final chance to prove that he can either be the backup or the starter for the season. But, I am just so tired of this quarterback competition. It's just been it's just rotting people's brains, I feel like, at this point. Whatever's going to play out will play out. Team is going to be probably right around 500 this year anyway. Let's chillax is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so I think with the Ravens, there was a lot of Ravens fans. There's a small group of Ravens fans now criticizing Kyle Hamilton because they had basically started off him doing a drill against a receiver, kind of playing man coverage against a receiver. He got burnt, but these drills are meant to help the offensive players. And then without forgetting, and I think some of these fans have forgotten, he's a safety. He's not a corner. He's a safety. He's going to be used in a certain way. Now, I think he's going to have his rookie mistakes, but I think he's going to be solid. James Prochet continues to develop really well as like a solid number 2, number 3 option. Bateman. So it seems like it's going to be Bateman. It's going to be Andrews. Duvernay might be a solid. And then it's going to be Duvernay. It's going to be Andrews, Bateman, and Isaiah Likely I think those are going to be your three main receiving targets. And then
Mhm.
after that, it's basically who has the hot hand between Duvernay, Brochet, Tylan Wallace, and then Nick Boyle and all that other stuff. So it's gonna be it's an intriguing blend. Like the idea of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely that can recreate Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews from 2019 and how that they were able to use the two tight end system. We'll see if they go out and get a receiver. I don't know if they will. I think Will Fuller gets hurt way too much. I think Odell Beckham isn't going to sign until midway through the season, and I think even then he'll probably go to the Rams. I mean, I do get sick and tired a little bit of fans kind of talking about how they don't have a receiver and they're not going to be very good. But I don't think receiver is, as I think I talked about last week, they're not the most valuable. They're not. I think people overstate the value of receiver points when it comes to financial and importance on a field. So it's gonna be interesting what they do there. Lamar is not going to play this week. Andrews isn't going to play this week. Like they're
Rightfully so.
veterans.
Unlike the Giants, where I vote for work today, that they're going to play all of their starters in their first preseason game. Very interesting.
So I anticipate Nick Boyle doing playing this week just to get some reps. But it's going to be interesting. I'm looking at Mike McDonald. I'm looking at what his defense looks like because this is his first time being a defensive coordinator. You have younger pieces. I think they're going to use this preseason to try to gel the defense together. David Ojabo did end up signing his rookie deal, so that means all the NFL rookies are now signed to their rookie deals. So other than that, nothing really there. We'll see if Lamar gets his contract done in a few weeks. It's like that whole thing. It just seems like they spent. So I think what's becoming clear is any pause earlier was like Lamar trying to get trust, trying to build that trust with the Ravens front office to make sure they're not going to try to take advantage, and the Ravens kind of trusting Lamar. I think they kind of crossed that bridge. So now there's talking about the financials at this point. It seems like a deal will get done before the season starts. And I think that's going to be the deal that's going to be that the whole NFL world is looking at right now because you got to look at what Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. That's going to set the market for them. It's
Oh
going
yeah,
yeah, and then also you also know it's going to create the hornet's nest of Lamar criticisms and also the Lamar fan club because there's like I mentioned last week, there's the people who are he can do no right or he can do no wrong type of thing, and it's that's going to be a negative aspect of it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So next week we're going to talk about the preseason. If there's anything else in sports, I'll see if there's anything for Virginia Tech football. I don't think there's going to be anything major for Virginia Tech football, but we can.
and I'll say we'll see if there's a decision on the Deshaun Watson appeal by next week, something like that.
I didn't really want to address that one too much because we both agree there's an issue with I have issues with the conduct being used. It's just something really icky. So next week we'll see you guys. We'll talk Ravens Steelers, anything in the NFL, anything in baseball, and then if there's anything in college, we'll either do a college preview this weekend or next weekend or the weekend after, depending on when the news happens because college football is starting, so that's exciting. We're gonna have football every week now, at least one day a week until the Super Bowl. So that's really exciting. So we'll see you then.
Yep, we'll be back next week. Talk to you all then.